Every year I know we gonna go hard. We been that team ever since Bart started. All my cheese heads go pack go. Ain't showing no mercy, cutting no slack, no. I ain't a bad sport and I'll even wish you good luck. Only thing I will.
What up? Welcome to Lombardi's Legends podcast. Dane and Wags are here, rolling into week 7. Wags, how you doing tonight, buddy? After a great Packer win last week, felt like a really complete performance from the team.
Yeah, I'm doing great. Packers 4-2, but still apparently technically last place in the NFC North. But we're just getting into the heart of the season here, Dane, and I couldn't have been more pleased with how the Packers played last Sunday. Just as I predicted, big win at home. I thought they were overdue for a pretty complete performance, and that's what we got. And certainly they're going to need another complete performance this week with the Houston Texans coming to town, 5-1 and atop the AFC South, and certainly a team that is on a lot of people's short list as a contender to come out of the AFC here at the end of the season. So another big one for the Packers. Yeah, maybe it doesn't have as many divisional ramifications, but it would sure be a nice one to play well, get another victory, and it's a nice measuring stick against a quality opponent.
Yeah, no, I mean, I agree, man. And it's, listen, I was pleased. I thought Love had the best performance of the season for him. I thought he was really spraying the ball around. It was good to see Romeo Doubs show up and just play some really good ball. Team really embraced him on that front. Evan Williams, Wags, continues to ascend as a rookie safety. Defensively, Packers defense was able to stop the run incredibly well. And you said it, man. They did all that stuff. They're going to need to do it again this week against the Texans team. That's a really good football team. And Wags, I think that it's really important then to highlight what this injury report looks like for both sides kind of going into the week, because both teams, very talented teams, both teams have dealt with injuries already this year. Anything that's sticking out to you so far on this Green Bay Packer injury report?
I think it's just continued lack of opportunity to practice for Devontae Wyatt, but we weren't expecting him to go last week. Was hoping to see him get out maybe in a limited capacity on the practice field this week. Doesn't look like it's going to happen. So for the second straight week, and he's dealing with a high ankle injury. So that's typically a multi-week injury. The good news, though, Dane, is that Jonathan Ford is designated to return off the IR, and he's been a full participant in practice, both practices so far this week as we record on a Thursday night. And certainly Jonathan Ford isn't one of the headliners on the defensive line, but he's contributed, been on the 53-man roster the last couple of seasons. And with Devontae Wyatt out, maybe for another week, I think that's good news from a depth standpoint for this Packers defensive line. But really outside of that, and we'll continue to obviously keep an eye on Dontavian Wicks, but a little surprised to see him out there practicing in a limited capacity Wednesday and today. So we'll see if he's going to be ready to go. Indications are he escaped any major injury concerns with the shoulder, but anytime you come out of the game and don't return, that's always going to be a slight cause for concern in terms of at least availability for the following week's game. So, but Dane, knock on wood, this injury report on the Packers side of things is fairly clean. Certainly things can change between now and Sunday, but all things considered, with where we are so far in this season, we've certainly seen a much worse injury report for the Packers in season past. So I think you got to be pretty relatively pleased with where the Packers stand on an injury front. I'll turn it over to you, though. I think the major headlines on the injury report are really on the Texans side, particularly on the defensive side of the ball. So, Dan, I'll let you kind of hit on some of those guys. And certainly this could be a different looking Texans defensive unit coming to Green Bay on Sunday, a defense that's looked like one of the better defensive teams in football so far in this young season, but with quite a few injuries that they're dealing with on that side of the football in particular.
Yeah, man. I mean, and right off the bat, Wags, you look at this Texans defense. You're right. They're fast. We'll get into the breakdown shortly, but they could potentially be pretty short at a number of key positions defensively. Right now, as of today, they had 5 guys listed as defensive starters that did not go today. Today being Thursday for practice. It's Aziz Al-Shair, who's been really good pass rusher for them. I believe leads the team, potentially tackles, if I'm not mistaken. He's always around the ball. Really good impact player. Henry Tuato is another guy who's been really good this season for them, kind of a tackle machine. So that's 2 starting linebackers right now that are dealing with the ailments for the Texans. And then Fadakasi, who's one of their defensive tackle, and Wags, 2 starting defensive backs, Lassiter and Jimmy Ward, both show up on their injury report and did not practice as of Thursday. And that's important because this has been a Texans team that defensively has been very, very good against the pass. Now, their pass rush has been good, but the defensive backs in the back end have been good as well. So to be short 2 of those guys, potentially for the Texans, I don't want to say throw the record out, because certainly that's not the case. This is a deep Houston Texans team that has dealt with adversity and played good football. But that being said, and we don't root for injuries, but I mean, they could potentially be down some very, very key players on the defensive side of the ball, Wags. And then that doesn't even include Nico Collins, right? Nico Collins, their stud young wide receiver who's just on the IR, will not be playing today. They can do a lot offensively outside of Nico Collins. Our old foe from the Minnesota days, Stephon Diggs, is now in Houston. He's somebody that can do stuff. But that being said, Wags, I mean, they are dealing with some serious injuries right now in Houston. And sometimes in this league, it's about when you play teams, not who you play. And this could be a week the Packers rolling off a really good week where maybe they can come in and catch the Texans. I think that the Texans and Packers actually have a similar roster build in some respects, just with how they attack and how they do things. But this week, the Texans are coming in a little shorthanded.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think just let's stick with the key matchups then, transitioning from the injury report with the Texas defense against this Packers offense. Dane, you mentioned some guys that have been really good standouts on the Texans defense. I think first of all, we got to really look at when you look at key matchups for this Texans defense. Will Anderson, defensive end, second-year guy, obviously one of the top, I believe, the 3rd pick in the NFL draft last year. And he's really come into his own and certainly has become an impact player for the Texans on the defensive side of the ball. And then on the opposite side of Will Anderson, another former Viking player that a lot of Packer fans are probably familiar with, and Danielle Hunter. So they've got some guys up front that can be disruptive. Hunter is certainly getting up there in age, but is still been doing pretty well in this young season as a contributing pass rusher. The Texans can get to the quarterback. They're in the top 10 in the league in quarterback sacks so far on this season. So this is going to be an interesting matchup, I think, in the trenches. The Packers have protected the quarterback better than almost anyone in the league this season. So whoever can win in those matchups, particularly in pass down situations, I think will certainly get the upper hand when it comes to these matchups. Now, up front, Elton Jenkins didn't practice Wednesday, was in a limited participant today. I think that was more, Dane, I think veteran rest related than anything too significant from an injury standpoint. But I think it's going to start with these guys up front. And then if the Texans are as depleted as they could be at the 2nd and 3rd level, it's going to be interesting to see how that disrupts some of the timing. From the defensive standpoint for the Texans, they've got some guys that are actually pretty good to come in if Jimmy Ward and Kamari Lassiter can't play. So just looking at the cornerbacks position, Derek Stingley Jr. Would probably most likely step in there, and then D'Angelo Ross. He's been around the league for a little bit, but Derek Stingley Jr. It was another high pick, I believe, of the Tennessee Titans, and he's moved over to the Texans. And talent guys dealt with some injuries in his young career, but has come away with the football a lot. He's kind of got a nose for the football, pass breakups, interceptions. So just because that they might be shorthanded, I think they've got a well-coached unit over there with D'Amico Ryans being a defensive head coach. So I expect them, even if they're a little bit shorthanded, be ready to go on the back end as well. So it's going to be incumbent, I think, on this offensive line to win in those matchups, particularly protecting Jordan Love as the biggest matchup I'm looking for in this one. And then certainly we've got all of the guys at the skill positions. Dane, I'll let you kind of hit on some of those matchups to win, but it's not going to matter if they can't keep Jordan Love well protected on Sunday.
Well, you said it, Wags. I mean, your words right out of my mouth. I mean, I think that protection up front, and by the way, I think this Packer offensive line has been sneaky good in the league right now. They've cleaned up a fair number of the penalties too over the last couple of weeks, and they've really have been able to keep Jordan clean over these last couple of weeks. So really kudos to that offensive line. Also, it was really exciting. I like Sean Ryan, but it's exciting to see Jordan Morgan get out there too, our first round pick, playing in some guard position. I know Josh Myers had some injury issue last week. So just it says so much, right? That the Packers can go down their starting center, and folks, the average person wouldn't notice it, right? Because the Packers have depth, and they have guys that are able to play across that offensive line. That's a credit to the players. It's a credit to the coaching staff. It's a credit to the front office for building and putting the investment in the offensive line. So offensive line guys ain't always the sexiest positions, but that's how you win football games. I don't care if you're playing Pop Warner, if you're playing at the NFL level, winning those games up front. So kudos to that offensive line, and just really appreciate what they've been able to do. You mentioned it, Dontavian Wicks potentially able to go. He's got the shoulder. I was honestly thinking he might have a couple week injury there. We weren't sure what happened after that game, but anytime a guy gets pulled in the game with an injury like that and doesn't come back, I guess I just think the worst. But the fact that he's likely to, or at least, he's got a shot, maybe I should say, at playing this week is, I think, obviously a major positive. But Wags, what I'm circling from a passing standpoint here is Jayden Reed this week. Your favorite guy, Jayden Reed. I love the matchup, whether the Texans are at full strength or not. And I don't believe that they're going to be. I just think that Jayden Reed is going to be able to match up incredibly well against the guys that they do, particularly Jalen Petrie, their slot corner there. He's a guy who is physical. He can get in your face, but I just think that Jayden Reed's athleticism and feel for the field is going to be something that the Packers are going to be able to exploit this week. A guy that I circle on this Texans defense is Kalen Bullock. He's a rookie safety. I think he's leading in interceptions right now with a couple picks and he's just really active on the back end. So I'm not sure if this is the week the Packers are taking shots, consistently down the field, like they're able to do some of these last couple of weeks. I think this is one where the Packers are going to be able to be a little bit more surgical over the center of the field and out of that slot position. And that's why I'm really circling Jayden Reed and then Tucker Kraft. Wags. Tucker Kraft, a bit of a down week by his terms after some really good weeks. This is a week with a couple linebackers potentially down for the Texans. Tucker Kraft's a matchup nightmare against any team in the league. And this is just a week where I think that he's He's more athletic. He's going to be able to find the soft spots in their defense, and they're a very physical defense, but Tucker Kraft is a very physical tight end. And I think that although they're going to try to jam him and hit him off the line of scrimmage, I think Kraft's going to be able to get some clean releases. He's going to be able to get some releases off the line, and he's going to just give the Texans fits this week. So he's the other guy that I'm really circling. Jaden Reed on the out, or kind of in the wide out position, but Tucker Kraft week in, week out is a threat. But this week in particular, with this injury report, Kraft could really do some damage against the Texans.
Yeah, and the Packers can create mismatches against any defense in this league, let alone a defense that could be missing the heart of the defense at the second and third level. So they're in the top three in explosive plays of over 20 and 40 yards. And so I would expect that as good as this Texans defense is, as well coached as they are, when it comes to communication and all of the movement that the Packers are able to do, when you get guys coming in, yeah, you can use the next man up mentality, and they might do really well for a majority of the plays and be sound, but all it takes is a handful of plays for the Packers to be able to take advantage of some of those explosive opportunities, and that can turn certain drives that don't look like they're going anywhere, and all of a sudden they're putting points on the board against this Texans defense. So this is a Packers offense that's multi-dimensional and explosive enough, again, to do that any week. And as much respect as I have for this Texans coaching staff, I think it's going to be hard to get all of those guys. If they have to have 3, 4, 5 guys that are not normally starters coming in all of a sudden at the same time and try to communicate and get on the same page against one of the top offenses in the league and one of the most explosive offenses in the league, I think that spells trouble if I'm a Texans fan. And I think even if they're able to hold this Packer offense somewhat in check, which I don't know that I would have a high level of confidence if I was the Texans that they'll be able to do. I think it's going to be hard to get all these guys locked in and to prevent the Packers from those explosive plays when you're relying on a bunch of new guys to get out there and be on the same page. So look for some more explosive plays this week. And I think Jaden Reed and Tucker Kraft are two guys, as you mentioned, that certainly fit that bill.
Wags, I got to ask you, I mean, so we're talking about through the air, which the Texans have been pretty good at this year. They're more middle of the pack against the run, though, defensively. And the Packers right now are at I don't want to say historic clip for Green Bay Packers standards running the ball, but this is the best they've run the ball through 6 weeks in decade plus. They've just been really, really dynamic on the ground, just consistently. Josh Jacobs has been a tremendous addition. Emmanuel Wilson, I love the 1-2 punch that we have right now in this backfield. Emmanuel Wilson every week, Wags, just falls forward, right? He gets what's blocked for him, gets more, and then falls forward. It's a quality that you see in a running back, and when you see it, you go, oh, that's something that you like to see. So the Texans, yes, we think this week we could exploit them in the air, but they have been middling against the run. I mean, how do the Packers approach this Texans game? Do you think that they're more run heavy? Do you think they're more pass heavy? Like, how do you think, and I know it's hard to predict how Matt LaFleur schemes this one up, but do you think we're keeping this ball on the ground a little bit more this week?
No, I don't think so. I think they've been really balanced this year, honestly. Certainly they were running the ball. They were much more run heavy when Jordan Love missed 2 games. But with Jordan out there, I have no qualms with the way they've been splitting the run versus pass in this offense so far. It's just they've looked pretty darn good to me. It's hard to complain with how they've distributed the football. I think it would be nice to see Josh Jacobs have a more efficient running game this week. We'll see if that is something that can happen. I think game flow, and if they're playing with a lead versus if they're having to, play from behind, where we'll talk about the Texans' explosive offense as well momentarily. And that could certainly dictate a little bit of how they approach that run pass split. But Dane, the reality is I think when you're looking at this running attack, where they really need to be better, and I said it last week, and I'll continue to say it, is in the red zone. This Packer offense is too good, and it was better last week, but this Packer offense is just too good to be having the struggles that they've had throughout this season as a whole in the red zone. And so I think it's going to be really important that the Packers are able to be better running the football more efficiently when they get down inside the opponent's 15 and 10 yard line. It's just too often. I feel like they have, well, part of it has been the penalties that have really hurt them in some of those spots, especially in the first few games of the season. But they just need to, I think, be better around that side, that part of the field, running the football. And with Josh Jacobs, he's looked pretty good overall. And he's a big physical running back, and he's made his name, getting the ball over the goal line in those situations. So they've got the talent, they've got the offensive line, they've got the play caller. So they just need to bring all that together and get the right rhythm and make it click. And I think that will be the key to being more efficient overall in the red zone is to be able to run the football at a more efficient and at a better clip once they get down there as well.
That's good insight. How are we feeling? Then if we shift gears a little bit here, you mentioned the explosive offense of the Texans. Stroud, really strong first year, just looks the part of an NFL quarterback. The Texans went out, surrounded him with more weapons offensively. They've got Joe Mixon now at running back. They've got Pierce still there in the backfield. Obviously mentioned Diggs. They're down Nico Collins, which is a huge loss, I think, for any offense. He's truly one of those young, up and coming, talented wide receivers. So him being on the IR is a big hit for them. But Wags, mentioning him being out, they still have Tank Dell, who had a really nice season last year. Dalton Schultz, a tight end who can kind of exploit you in some different down and distances. So this is a Texans offense that does a lot of things. And I mentioned it earlier. I have to mention it again. Packers they're built slightly differently, but they actually remind me quite a bit of the Texans and just their approach. It's, a lot of different weapons they can get you with. 1 week, it could be one guy. That guy could go dark for 3 weeks. And then other guys are picking up where he, the other dude just left off, and they can get you a lot of ways defensively, trying to be aggressive, trying to get turnovers, trying to get after you. So this is an explosive offense with a young quarterback. How did the Green Bay Packers go in and to this matchup and at the very least limit Stroud, who really is an up and coming star in this league?
Yeah, I think they've got to get pressure on CJ Stroud. He's not the most mobile quarterback. They've faced far more mobile quarterbacks already on this season. He likes to stand in the pocket. He's got a great arm, but he's not a guy that typically is going to hurt you with his legs. So certainly he's a good athlete, but that's not his game. He's going to try to beat you with his arm. So the Texans have protected him reasonably well. They're kind of middle of the pack in terms of their pass protection with this offensive line. Certainly they've got a veteran high quality tackle in Laramie Tunzel. But this Packer defensive front has been a little up and down with the way that they've been able to get pressure on the quarterback. To be fair, some of that is because of the mobility of a few of the quarterbacks that they faced. And was somewhat by design to stay in their lanes and make sure that they can contain the quarterback and keep him from tucking and running. I don't think they're going to have quite that level of concern with CJ Stroud. So I'd like to see them get a little bit more pressure early and often with their front four in this one. If they need to start sending guys, that's going to be a little bit of a dice roll. CJ Stroud has proven that he can make the reads. He's got the ability to spread the football around a lot, even without his top weapon. So Dane, I think it's going to be incumbent, first of all, if you want to try to slow him down, can you get pressure with your front four against this Texans front? And if not, then certainly they're going to have to find ways to be physical and disruptive at the line of scrimmage in this pass attack. But certainly I think it starts there. And you mentioned Joe Mixon. So I was just looking over at the run game. If the Texans are facing a lot of shorter down and distance situations, or they don't have a lot of third downs to deal with, that's going to make it a lot more difficult to slow down this Texans offense as well. So it's fundamental football. If you can win in the trenches, I think honestly both sides more so than a lot of weeks. It's going to be the biggest key for me is who wins on the trenches on both sides of football. Because there's a lot of talent on both these teams. So I think that's going to be the biggest key when you're looking at this Texans offense as well.
Yeah, I'm 100% with you. And, I was looking at some of the facts and figures of this Texans offensive line, and it's surprised me. Tunsil's having a bit of he's been such a good talent in this league. He's having a bit of a down year. I circled, he has 12 penalties on the year already, leading the league at the position. And their left guard Wags as well. Kenyon Green so allowed a couple sacks, a ton of hurries. So it's rare that a team with as much success offensively as the Texans also have a left side that has been fairly leaky. It's an odd thing to see. At the same time, somebody's got to get in there and get after the quarterback from the other side. I would argue JJ Enagbare has been the most consistent pass rusher of the Packers. Each week he's been able to get some hurries. He's just been kind of around the ball, done some nice work for the Packers. But, the elephant not so much in the room in Green Bay is Rashawn Gary. Gary, having not really been able to get after the quarterback from a stat perspective, the way that he had over the last few years, was paid a lot of money last year. It's in our chat. I see Kevin, I see Wayne, both talking about Rashawn Gary right now. What do you make of Rashawn Gary, Wags? I know we've had, over the last few weeks, we've had quarterbacks that are extremely athletic, more of a scrambling quarterback, and that does change how you pass rush. But this week is a tried and true test as far as I'm concerned. This is a week where I know Rashawn Gary's expectations are through the roof for himself. For me, the expectations are high for somebody like Rashawn Gary to go get after the quarterback and get some stops. How do you feel about the Rashawn Gary situation? Is it a situation? What are we making of this right now?
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously facing a lot of double teams at the moment. So I don't want to make excuses for the guy, but that certainly alters some of the dynamics of what your expectations are going to be from just a pure, productivity standpoint. That being said, best pass rushers in the league find ways to get after the quarterback regardless. Honestly, I'm kind of curious. One of the things that we saw more of for all of Joe Barry's faults with Rashawn Gary was moving him around on the line. And it doesn't seem like they've done quite as much of that. And I don't know if that's just strictly, with the defense coordinator change, if it's a little bit because of the scheme change, not being in that 3-4, where he's not moving around on the defensive line as much, and where they're bringing him. But I just wonder if that might be a way for him to get some different looks. If there's some opportunities that they can give him a different angle with some of those stunts. Certainly, we've seen other guys step up and win their matchups because probably in a large part, all of the attention Rashawn Gary's getting. It seemed like awful lot of the times the Packers have gotten their sacks. Rashawn Gary's the one kind of collapsing the pocket to a certain degree. And so that's forcing the issue. Quarterback has to step up in the pocket, step away from from Gary, and then someone else is able to clean up from another spot. So that doesn't show up on the stat sheet though, right, Dane? So when you're looking at it from a stat sheet perspective, yeah, you kind of wonder, all right, well, if you're one of the top pass rushers in the game, you're going to start accumulating sacks one way or another. So we're huge supporters of Rashawn Gary, I think, on this podcast, but at the end of the day, he hasn't been producing from just a pure pass rush perspective to the level that we're paying him to. And he knows that. He worked harder than anyone. But I'd love to see him start to get in there and get some of those sacks of it on his own right. Because I think sometimes it's just one of those things where you have to break the dam a little bit and then things just start to accumulate from there. But Dingan, is there anything in particular you're seeing? Is there some a level of concern you have? Or I mean, I think it's a very fair question. And, I don't want to sound overly critical, but again, I mean, we're paying him as a top pass rusher. You got to go out there and get sacks, right?
Yeah, no, that's right. I mean, that's just the reality of it. I'm not sounding the alarm yet. The Packers defense has played well over the last couple of weeks. I think they've done what they've needed to do at the times they've needed to do it. Yeah, I mean, brass tacks is, I think the sacks are going to be coming for Rashawn. That's my honest answer. That's not me being a Packer homer. I think that they can come in bunches for Gary. And I think they're still, we're gonna let's wait and see how this week goes, how next week goes. But I think this is truly a prime week for Rashawn Gary to potentially make some impact plays, force some turnovers, just force havoc on an opposing offensive line. So it remains to be seen. Something we're definitely keeping an eye on. But I would like to see this being a week, right, for Rashawn Gary to really show up. Stats don't say everything, but man, wouldn't it be nice to just have one of those like patented 2-3 sack Rashawn Gary games just to kind of like get that out of the way? Because I think that at a certain point, guys like him even start to press, right? And I'm not saying he's pressing, but guys like that are just amped up to 10, they're doing everything they can. And I love what you're suggesting, man, that just maybe moving him around a little bit more, maybe just doing whatever we need to do to get him in the right position could maybe go a long way as well. But I don't have all the answers on this one, because it's not like he just dropped off, right? And he is still making impact in certain plays, but I think the consistency and starting to get home to the quarterback is something that we need to see coming up here pretty soon.
Yeah, I want to highlight someone I was going to bring up in Wayne in our Facebook chat, just popping in here, Edwin Cooper. And he's drawing parallels to some Packer greats of yore. But really, I highlighted him last week. Edwin Cooper is getting more and more opportunities. I thought he had another phenomenal performance last week. It sounds like they're just opening up more and more potential opportunities for Edwin Cooper to get out there on the football field. So we've got a fast, young linebacking core. Quay Walker has been a little up and down, as a lot of fans have noted so far this year. So hopefully he can kind of pick up his performance a little bit alongside Edwin Cooper, just getting more and more opportunities. At the second level, you're stopped and you're often tasked with getting those stops in the run game. In particular, this week, the Texans acquired Joe Mixon, as you mentioned, and he missed a couple of weeks with injury, but he's been awful good for this Texans team so far in the games that he has been able to go out there and play, and efficient as a runner. And I think certainly they've got to be pleased with what they've gotten from him so far this year. But what are you looking for in a matchup of this young Packer linebacking core against a really pretty talented, I think underrated Texans backfield with with Damian Pierce coming in as the backup and change of pace guy. So, Dane, what are you looking for in that matchup, and how can the Packers slow down this Texans running attack?
Yeah, I'll tell you what, Edgerrin Cooper, every week, so battled injuries throughout camp. Every week that he's played and he's gotten more snaps, I feel like the production hasn't dropped off. I feel like he's gotten better and better and better. And I get what the Packers are doing with Cooper, right? He is a young guy coming up from an injury. You can't necessarily throw them to the wolves, so to speak, right away. But each week, Wags, we're seeing incrementally more and more snaps coming his way. I think last week he was just shy of 40 snaps played on defense. He's getting closer and closer to becoming one of those every down linebackers for the Packers. I would not be surprised if this week we see him above 40 snaps and maybe potentially significantly more due to the impact he's made. He's a sure tackler. He's somebody that so far has looked to be very much in the position he needs to be in. AFAM, you're highlighting a Wags on the live chat, says Cooper could be the defensive savior. I'll tell you what, man, like he could definitely be a guy who can make some major impact plays. He's so physical too. And that's something that I really love. Even last week, every single time he had an opportunity, Wags, he was punching at the ball and violently punching at the ball, not passively. So I just really like what Cooper brings. He brings a bit of an attitude, he brings speed, and he brings a physicality to this linebacker group. Quay Walker, Wags, I'll just say this. I really liked him his rookie year. I know he had some mental mistakes, but I liked the physicality he showed this season. Although a lot of the guys look to be playing faster, I think under Coach Hafley's defense, Quay Walker looks to be having a little bit more tentative than I'm used to seeing him playing. And I don't know if it's a scheme thing. I don't know what it is. I'm not pretending to know, but he does look a little out of place. He does look sometimes a half a step slow. And I know for a fact Walker has not lost his speed. So I just don't know if it's a fit thing or what it is. But seeing somebody like Cooper, especially right coming in and playing, you can see somebody playing with speed that kind of is fitting that system, playing really well. I think Quay Walker can be that guy. I really do. He's got a ton of talent. But right now, I would argue over the last couple of weeks, Cooper has been the best linebacker in Green Bay. And believe it or not, Eric Wilson has played really good ball in very limited snaps on the defensive side as well. We expect him to be good on special teams. But outside of even some of those splash plays early in the season, when he has been called on, although his snap totals have dropped with Cooper's ascension, he's been very good. I don't think that, the expectation is that Wilson's playing high level of snaps defensively. Ideally, it would be Quay and Cooper, I believe, would be our two primary linebackers. I think they're the fastest. They're the most athletic. But I expect Cooper to go up, and I'm hopeful that Quay Walker in this defense continues to settle in as the season wears on, because this could be a really dangerous duo if Walker is able to kind of put it together here in year 3.
Yeah, and I think what will be interesting to see is how the Packers shift personnel-wise. You think about at the safety position with the way Evan Williams is playing, Javon Bullard is still getting a lion's share of snaps out there as well. And with how physical Bullard is there an opportunity for him to maybe kind of come up in the box a little bit in certain down and distance situations? And Quay Walker has looked particularly lost in passing situations. So maybe that's a move that could enable Quay to get out there, build up his confidence, and be able to attack in some of those early down situations and leverage the physicality and then obviously the speed and coverage skills that a guy like Bullard can have. And then, by the way, you still got Evan Williams out there to get some additional snaps. I think certainly we talk about how multidimensional the Packers offense is, but when you look at the back end of this Packers defense, they've just completely remade what that defense looks like with some of those young guys and the way that they're playing right now. So that might be another way to allow Quay to be a little bit less exposed in an area that he seems to be struggling in a little bit. It's going to be interesting. One guy we didn't talk about for the Texans, I know you mentioned his name, but Dalton Schultz, the tight end, is, he's not a premier tight end in this league, but he certainly has the capability to hurt you. And I have a feeling that they're going to be trying to attack Quay Walker with Dalton Schultz as much as they possibly can this week.
Yeah, what's heartening when talking about what's happening right now is you mentioned Bullard, you mentioned Williams, we've mentioned Cooper. They're all rookies. The last couple drafts of the Green Bay Packers have been really good, and you and I have said ad nauseum, I think, on this podcast, man, if this draft class can be what some of these last couple draft classes have been, then we have an incredibly young core. And right now it's turning up like this, especially these three defenders that we've been talking about could all be real playmakers for this team. Bullard playing in that slot role a little bit more. Edwin Williams on the back end paired with McKinney, with Bullard playing the slot, allowing Jair on one side and then the Packers rotating. Although Keyshawn Nixon's played really good football defensively this year for the Packers as well. It opens up, as you mentioned, Wags, the realm of possibility for this Packers defense, big picture. It's just really, really exciting to see. So not only this week, but I do think that the Packers maybe found their kind of magic elixir with Williams and McKinney kind of on the back end, with Bullard playing a little bit more on the slot and around the line of scrimmage. Young guys that are active, and Williams in particular, having just a nose for the football. It's just really, really exciting to see. And I'm excited to see somebody like Coach Hafley, who is creative, I think, defensively, figure out how he wants to utilize these pieces to the best of their ability.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Dane, before we get into X factors and score predictions, we haven't even talked about the Packers' new acquisition. They went and got a kicker. So veteran kicker, Brandon McManus. And I know certainly there's a lot of questions about the baggage he brings from off the field. But listen, I think Goody got up and he had a press conference, talked about it. I don't think he just paid lip service. Packers are not an organization that brings in guys lightly without doing their homework. So I do actually believe them when they said they did their homework and they feel comfortable with what this situation is and they're moving forward. And frankly, they just on the field made a big upgrade in getting a Brandon McManus. He may not be a long-term solution at kicker. We'll see, but clearly he's someone that he's got a leg and he's been able to make all the kicks for the most part that you need to. And that's anything under 50 yards. He's been pretty much money throughout his career. So Dane, what are your thoughts on this kicking situation? I know it's been a frustration in the last couple of seasons in particular, but do you feel a lot more confident, hopefully, in what this looks like moving forward?
Yeah, I do. I mean, you mentioned it almost automatic, 90% from 49 or less. That's pretty damn good. I don't think I'm 90% good at anything in life. So that's pretty good. I'll take it. Right. So I like that. He's had a big leg over the years. He hit a 61-yarder in an NFL game. So he's a guy who's been able to do that. Versace, as today said, thinks plenty of legs still there. So a change needed to be made. Okay, so let's be absolutely clear on that. The Packers went through 7, 8, 9 kickers in camp over the course. They still have Hale on the practice squad as the international player designee. This is a Packers team that has been active in trying to get a kicker that can stick in Green Bay, that they can rely on. And McManus has the pedigree to do that. Yes, he has the off-field baggage, but also he was, by all appearances, there's a pretty serious investigation that went in. And I agree. You know what? I don't always trust I don't always trust NFL teams, right, when vetting players. But I think the Packers have earned that right. I mean, take a look at this roster, right? This is a strong roster of not only talent, but also leaders. These are through the draft, through free agency. These are men that have been voted captains. These are men that have, just a high esteem, I think, in their locker room. So I'm bringing him in here, as long as he keeps his nose clean in Green Bay and, and makes kicks. I mean, that's the important thing at this point, Wag. So I'm excited that the team made a move. I'm excited to have him in here, and I'm excited to hopefully, start making kicks consistently because, last week, even folks, like we were joking, Wags and I and some of our friends were joking in our Packer group text about like, the Packers just go for it going forward. And it's like, we're joking, but not really. And that's not a position Packers or any NFL should be in when we're talking about a 43-yard field goal attempt, right? So it's time for the Packers to clean it up. And I do commend the front office for being so aggressive. So many of these NFL front office guys refuse to admit mistakes. And the fact that the Packers, consistently try to make their roster better is something that I really admire.
Yep, absolutely. So obviously proof will be in the pudding, but he's going to be out there kicking on Sunday. And Dane, they do not expect to have him kicking before Sunday in Lambeau.
I don't get that.
He's played there before, but isn't that a little bit curious? I thought that was a curious thing as well.
Yeah. Okay. Thank you for saying that. I read that today that Bisaccia interviewed said, yeah, he doesn't think he's kicked here before, right? Yeah, he doesn't need to kick here before Sunday. I don't understand that. I don't pretend to be a kicking expert by any stretch, but you would think even if he doesn't think he needs to kick, maybe swing the leg a couple times in Lambeau Field before Sunday. I don't know. I mean, am I overthinking it, Wags, or like, why not? I mean, swing the leg.
I don't understand it either. It's not like it's that hard. You just need two guys to go out there and snap and hold for them and kick the ball a couple of times, right? So I think they would figure out a way to make that happen. So it was more just curious to me. I'm not super concerned about it. It's just like, it's more, why wouldn't you, than it is like a conscious decision to avoid it. So in any event, hopefully it's not an issue, and we'll be able to just look back at that and say, all right, it was fine. We were worrying for nothing. Dane, let's get into the X factors. I'm going to let you lead this off this week. I'll let you decide offense, defense, who are you starting with for X factors this week?
Yeah, I'm going to go defense, and it's going to be no surprise because I just talked about him a bunch. Rashawn Gary. This is a week. We need our pass rusher, our number one pass rusher, to get to the quarterback. Stroud's too damn good to have time in the pocket, and he can gut teams that bring the blitz or try to manufacture pressure. The best way to beat the Texans, to beat Stroud, is to just beat them up front. Left side, as mentioned, has been leaky to say the least. Lots of holding, a lot of different issues. This is the time for Rashawn Gary to really turn it up in front of the Lambeau faithful. So if Rashawn Gary is getting consistent pressure, he's causing headaches for the Texans this week. So for those reasons, Wags, it's a beautiful day too. Weather's going to be 75 degrees, so no issues with weather. Go get after it, Rashawn Gary. My X factor this week, Rashawn Gary.
All right, wonderful. I'm going to go with rookie safety Evan Williams, and I think he's, as you said earlier, he's got a nose for football, and I think he's a little overdue to get his hands on football this week. This is a Texans offense that doesn't turn the ball over all that much. They protected the ball pretty well, but I think this Packer defense is just, sometimes you just have years where things click from a forcing turnover perspective, and they are forcing turnovers at a near historic rate right now, not just for the Green Bay Packers. And we're talking like NFL overall, with the number of turnovers and takeaways that they've forced so far this season. And they can come in bunches, but I think Evan Williams is going to be the guy this week. It's going to be his turn. And for that reason, I'm going to pick him as a defensive X factor this week.
Great choice, Wags. Let's move over to the offensive side. Let's talk X factors. Why don't you let me go first on the defensive side? Who you got as your X factor this week offensively, Wags?
Yeah, I'm gonna go with Tucker Kraft. He's Tucker is just having a great season. I thought it was, he played well last week. Didn't have as many opportunities in the past game, certainly, but I think this is a week that Tucker Kraft is going to get back, and this is just going to be a great season for him. So I think he gets in the end zone this week. So Tucker Kraft, when he gets things going for this offense, what do you do then at that point, Dane? Because I'll tell you what, this is why I think tight end position is so important for the Packers. Is they've got a good run game. They've got all the skill guys at wide receiver, and then by the way, you've got a wrecking ball in Tucker Kraft, and even Ben Sims was able to make some contributions last week in both the run and pass game. So I really like what they're doing here offensively, and I think this is going to be a week that Tucker Kraft gets game planned, a few more opportunities, and I think he's going to have a big impact this week.
I love that selection, Wags. And I had a short list going into this tonight, of who I thought X Factor would be on my end of things. And, Kraft, of course, always. But I'll tell you what, and I don't know if it's because you went with Kraft and the tight end position. I don't know if it's because the Texans are down a couple starting, potentially starting safety, potentially a couple linebackers. I don't know if it's because our pal AFAM on our YouTube channel keeps talking about the tight end, but I'm going with the other tight end that's healthy this week, Ben Sims. And I'll tell you what, Tucker Kraft, for all those reasons, they're going to try to take him away, and he could still have a big week. But you mentioned it, Wags. Ben Sims last week had a nice catch. He had a nice touchdown last season in his first season, and was able to have a couple plays that, I thought he was able to stretch the field a little bit and make some plays. So why not this week, Wags? The Texans down a little bit. They're going to be trying to take away the top tier, quote unquote, of the offense, the premier players, the Jaden Reeds, the Tucker Kraft, I think with limited success, but they're going to try to do that. When those teams do that kind of thing, other players step up and make plays. Ben Sims can step up and make plays. So I love the tight end matchups against the Texans this week. You take Kraft, I take Ben Sims, and I have a feeling, Wags, one or both of us are going to hit this week with our X Factor.
Yeah, I love it. All right, so score prediction time. I see Kevin's got his up in the Facebook chat, 31-27. Packers, or should I say Cheese? Wayne is going Packers 26, Texans 21. We've got AFAM in the YouTube chat. He's got, I can't read that.
He's got Ben Sims 100, Texans
7. Okay, all right. I was confused by that, but here we go. So if you got more score predictions for other folks that are out there, we'll throw them up in the chat. But Dane, I'm gonna dive in here. I'll go first here tonight to set you up. Of course, I'm gonna have the Packers pulling out a win. This is a really quality team that's coming to Lambeau Field. Aside from one game this year, the Texans have played really well. They've been playing really good football. They had one dud on the road against the Vikings. But I think it's going to be interesting to see how much injuries play a factor in this game. But I think the Texans are certainly a team that offensively are going to be able to do more than what the Packers have had to deal with for the last few games. So from that perspective, I expect them to put some points on the board. I think the Packers offense is going to put some points up on the board. But ultimately, I've got the Packers pulling this one out 27-24. And this will be a close game. But I think the Packers do enough to put another one in the left-hand column, get to 5-2. And I think we're going to get another really solid game. I think this is a week. I asked Jordan Love. I picked him as my X Factor last week. And he almost went turnover free, and the interception he threw wasn't his fault. But I think this is the week Jordan Love fully cleans this up, and no turnovers from Jordan Love. Clean game from him and the offense, and they do just enough to slow down this explosive Texans offense and pull out a win here in Lambeau.
Great prediction. We got another one in the chat. John, 31-10 Green Bay Packers. Love it, John. Thanks as always for joining, buddy.
John, you predict 31-10 every week, so I love that. I mean, and you were darn close last week, 34-13. So, John, I'm just going to let you just keep predicting 31-10, and if Packers continue to win by 2 or 3 scores every week, I think you'll be our new predictor moving forward.
Yeah, the Swami. I love it. And Wags, I liked the 24 number actually quite a bit for the Texans. I have the same. And folks, if you're new to the pod, Wags and I, although we definitely do not talk about our predictions ahead of time, we also have been doing this podcast for almost 7 years and have been friends forever and Packer fans for life. So we sometimes think alike, sometimes apart. But I have the Packers putting up 30 points, and I have McManus hitting a couple field goals for us, which is going to be really nice. 30-24. Packers win this game. Similar, really, Wags, to what you're saying. Just a couple more points from the Packers. Add a field goal, really, onto it. But I think the Packers do enough. I think this is a really good Texans team. This is a Texans team that's not only good now, they're going to be good all season long, could do some damage in the playoffs. I'm glad they're in the AFC. We only have to see them once. The NFC North is hard enough this year. But, and I respect them a lot. But I think the Packers at home can do a lot of damage. Jordan Love and company are going to put up enough points. The offensive line is going to continue to keep putting it together and put a really good game together. 30-24, Green Bay Packers win this ball game.
Oh, I love it. Yeah. And I mean, you can't take any week off in this league, but honestly, this is kind of low key, important game for Packers. They've got, if they can get through this game and steal a win, again, no game's a gimme, but a couple of games after this one that look very winnable and going into the bye. So if the Packers can keep pace, get a win against a really good opponent this week and get to 5-2, I think that's setting themselves up really well. Not to make any assumptions of any games being a win, but certainly if you're looking ahead a little bit after this one, it sets up really, really nicely for them heading into the bye in a few weeks. So, all right, Dane, I think that's all I had. Anything else before we close this one out tonight?
No, I mean, folks, follow us on all of our social media channels, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter. We'll be back next week, but we're just so damn excited for more Packer football and really do appreciate all of you. You can find us on, wherever you get your podcasts here after this live chat. Please share us with your friends and just thank you. It means so much that you're following along again tonight.
Absolutely. As always, be legendary and go Pack Go.
Go Pack Go.
Every year I know we gonna go hard. We been that team ever since Bart started. All my cheese heads go Pack Go. Ain't show with no mercy, cutting no slack, no. I ain't a bad sport and I'll even wish you good luck. Only thing I will. Every year I know we gonna go hard. We been that team ever since Bart started. All my cheese heads go Pack Go. Ain't show with no mercy, cutting no slack, no. I ain't a bad sport and I'll even wish you good luck. Only thing I will.